y'all. We're going to begin our mailbag series as we go through the off season on Mondays, part of our show for the week as we lay things out going forward. We're going to have our mailbag Monday every week to start off the week, returning from the weekend, and get a lot of questions from all of you as we get ready for, number one, week 2 of the off season starting today. The NBA draft upcoming, free agency, everything. Mailbag Monday will be a big part of our show going forward, and we hope that you all have your questions ready to go as we sit here with you.
Better have them ready before the show, otherwise you ain't getting it in.
Exactly. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast.
That's not really true. If you want to leave us a super chat, we will address it.
That's a distinction.
If you want a question for free, then yes, you got to get in before the show.
Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, Devon Givens, Bree with us. Everybody, good to see you. Good to hang out with you here. Happy Easter, everybody. Hope you all had a pretty cool weekend. The weather was beautiful. It cooperated, and you went and hunted for some eggs out in the backyard or in the park or wherever you did. Had a lot of candy and a good dinner.
Shoved that toddler to the side, and I got all the candy I wanted.
There you go. And that's how you do it as an adult. You shove the kid to the side and let them cry. You just deal with it. But Mailbag Monday for us today. We'll get into some other things a little bit later on. Some news and notes from the weekend. Check in on the game ones that took place this weekend. Not a lot of good game ones, but some game ones that we'll talk about a little bit later. Great to have everybody in the chat to start things off. How was the weekend, Kyle? Good weekend?
Yeah. Weather got nicer, which I appreciate. We still get these ridiculous wind warnings like every other day for some reason, because that's just a thing we deal with now. But yeah, I didn't do much of the Easter celebrating. It was a nice low-key weekend for me.
Derek?
No, it was great.
Good weekend.
It was great. I got some stuff around the house done on Saturday, and Sunday was all family. A very long day of family, but a bunch of family that isn't in town came in, so it was nice to catch up.
And Bree, you had a good weekend?
It was good. Finally went home. Yep.
Waited for the off season to go home.
Pretty much.
And she got that. All right, let's get things started here on this Mailbag Monday to see where we begin. And if you paid attention to the thumbnail and the photos that Bree had there for the thumbnail, some draft picks in there, some potential draft picks, maybe 5 and 6. First, before we get started with that, we tell you about signing up to become an All PHLY diehard member, allphly.com, because you will have a chance to read the story from Kyle Newbeck at allphly.com, talking about the 5th and 6th potential picks, the options there that may be for the Philadelphia 76ers. The intro offer for the NFL draft, which starts later in the week, $36 to sign up, become a member, get a free t-shirt, part of the Discord, have access to the events, 20% off for those events, and you get to simply hang out with us for a good while for the whole year at that great intro offer of $36. You'll like it, then you'll pass it on to some loved ones to tell them to sign up as well. So again, $36, go sign up. And when you do, first things first, go read the story from Kyle about the 5th and 6th pick, but you also get a chance to hear him talking about it today. So Bree, let's get to the first question with the mailbag and lay it out, start things off here on this Monday. What's the worst keep the pick outcome you envision for the Philadelphia 76ers, Derek?
Well, I assume, the worst is you get the 6th pick because you get less options.
Just have fewer options, yeah.
And the worst, are we basically talking what would be my 6th ranked player? I actually think Neil Deaver sort of answered this question in a part of the way that I would go. He said any center. I agree with that. I don't think any of the 2 centers that you would really take up there either fit the sort of, play style that I would necessarily want. Although Malawach is theoretically, I think, what I would want in the center. I just don't know I'm not convinced he is worth a top 6 pick.
Right.
And Queen doesn't fit and Queen's not really a true center, but doesn't really fit the prototype I would want. I am pretty out on big men at this range of the draft. I don't want to reach for one because we feel like we need a big man. I think part of that urge might come from the fact that there aren't really many wings in this range of the draft either, which is going to get to a part of the another question I know that we're going to have later on. I don't want to reach for a position because I don't want to take a guard. And certainly I think all of the guards that we're going to talk about in this range, when you start talking about falling to 5 or 6, have their uncertainty too. but I still like the majority of them better as prospects than I do reaching for either a big man or just a bigger like forward type. Now we have talked a lot about Ace Bailey. He's still in all of our boards 3 or 4. That's more of an upside play than it is a positional play. But to me, the worst outcome is reaching for a position because you feel like you need it.
Yeah. To echo what you're saying, Derek, I will actually, and maybe this will get proven wrong over time, because Derek Queen is normally not the type of guy that I like as a front court player. I'm normally into more of the Malawak style of big, very toolsy, defensive centric, all that. But the more that I have watched all of these guys, the more I'm like, you cannot take Malawak with a 5th or 6th pick in this draft. Like, yeah. I don't have the strong enough belief in him as a two-way player to say, with Embiid still here, with Bona coming off the developmental year that he had, and with, frankly, just like better, more reliable talent that I think will be available on the board, and that fits sort of the 2 timelines thing they're going to have to do. I just see Malawak as a guy that needs way more time than I think people are considering right now. Like, if your basis for picking a big man is based around the idea, like, okay, you can't really rely on Joel Embiid. And like, that's a completely fine enough thing to think at this point based on the last 2 seasons he's had. But if the idea behind that is we need to get someone or multiple someones to help Tyrese Maxey, to help Jared McCain, to assist whoever is here as like that young core and the group that's trying to build towards something, Malawak needs a lot more help from everyone else than I think they would be getting from him. Like, he could make a defensive difference over time, and I think there will be flashes early, but he is a guy who only played like 21 minutes a night at Duke, was in foul trouble in a decent handful of games, and so that's a thing to monitor. How does his body and how does his mind hold up if he's asked to play 30, 35 minutes a night as a starting guy? And then offensively, almost everything is pure projection right now. Like, he is a play finisher, and he was a great play finisher at Duke. He had great chemistry with Con Knipple. Cooper Flagg certainly teamed up with him on a bunch of stuff. There are a lot of guys who just like throw it in the general direction over there and he'll finish it. But he's not a playmaker. He's not a guy who has even really attempted threes or jumpers, right? So if you want him to be a stretch big of some kind eventually, that's all based on, hey, he shot pretty good at the free throw line on 2 attempts a game. And more importantly, he, for someone his size, is not that good of a rebounder right now. And a lot of that is he's going to have to get stronger, but he's got a high center of gravity. And so there are a few notable examples of games. Like, everyone saw the Houston game in the tournament where just did not rebound basically at all. And then there was another game in February that I watched against Clemson. Very similar situation where Clemson just got into him, moved him around, made him ineffective on both ends. And I think as he moves to the next level, that's going to be a problem for him for a while. Like, you don't get to face a lot of like mid-major type teams or like substandard athlete teams. He will have his moments for sure, but I think he is multiple years away from being like that guy's a reliable rotation guy. And so I don't think he accomplishes basically any of the goals that you would want if you're taking a center in that spot.
So I think I'm at the point where if gun to your head, don't like that phrasing. If you're forced to take a center at 6, I would go Queen over him, or a big man at 6.
I would too. But I've also been more on the Queen Island, so I'm surprised that you've gotten there.
No, I've gotten there. I do think Malawak is interesting because like there's just aren't usually people that big who can move their feet that well. Mm-hmm. He is, I think, like when you project him as a defensive player, he's pretty unique and certainly a piece that I think can make a huge impact.
Yep.
I think the rebounding concerns are legit. He's pretty good offensively, pretty mediocre defensively, and when he's bad and runs into a bad matchup, he could be a real liability on that end. I think when you project that and project his offensive game, I agree with Kyle. It's going to take a while. And I think that, for a lot of teams in that 6 through 10 range, that defensive upside and long-term defensive upside is worth a gamble. I'm just not sure the Sixers are it. He would be a player if you trade back, which we've talked about quite a bit. If you end up at 6, then I have some interest in. But I just think there's going to be players who I like better at that spot.
He seems more as we talked about this before, he seems more like a fit with a Toronto Raptors type of team where they don't have a center. They have a veteran center in Jakob Poeltl. That's not part of their future. They have a lot of young guys there that they could probably continue to play the way that they like to with a young guy that is not quite ready. He can continue to grow with them and fit in a situation like that, not necessarily here and the offensive things. How much, though, did the bonus thing help when you look at where it was? Because we did talk a lot about Malawak in this spot where it was, I'm very interested. But then Adembona really had a really good close to his rookie season, had some really good games, almost had a 30-point game, a lot of double-double games, saw how he protected the rim. Not to say that he's going to be able to play 30 minutes in real meaningful basketball when you're talking about seeding and things of that nature, if that's the case next year. But did that change anything at all?
Not in this range, no. I think Bona had a really strong close to the season, but you have to consider, like, the month of March is just basketball dead zone in the NBA. There are, including the Sixers for that matter, but there are so many teams that just take their foot off the gas and are either clearly resting and saving stuff for the playoffs, or on the other end, which is where the Sixers were, they're taking guys out of the lineup and saying, we want to lose games. We're positioning for a draft pick. And so Adem deserves a lot of credit for playing hard, developing the way he did, showcasing the skills that he added over the course of the season. But I think it would be unwise to say, hey, this second round flawed prospect that we took last year played well in the most irrelevant part of the NBA season. We can't take a center at 6. I think it'd be much more about the lingering Joel Embiid stuff, what kind of timeline you're on, how does a guy fit with Maxey and McCain and Grimes and these guys that you're expecting to be here for hopefully the next 3 to 4 years or so. Those are all much bigger concerns for me and factors I would weigh before anything with Adembona.
And I agree with Kyle in the fact that Adem's good play doesn't change my my approach at all. I do think Adem playing well sort of proves one of my theories coming in is that you can get 85% of Malawak's potential and upside. Certainly when you're talking about that profile of a center too, like a defensive-minded center, you can get 85% of that with a much lesser resource. So if you were going to invest a top 6 pick, he has to be truly special, and you have to have a high confidence in that specialness. And I do think Malawak, I think, is going to be a much better defender. I think he has more upside, certainly defensively. But if I can I would rather use a second-round pick and get someone like Bona's upside than take someone with a 6 pick who doesn't have the kind of transformative offensive game at that position.
Got you. All right, that's the Adembona portion of the show. For that, talking about the big guys, Neil Deaver, appreciate you starting us off with your thoughts there as well. Bree, let's get to the second question here as far as we have on our Mailbag Monday. From Cam, Chucky Ham. Sorry, 5. Got a whole bunch of 5s.
See Ham, the Philly legend.
With McCain and possibly Grimes back, what do the Sixers do if best player available is a guard? Should we try to trade up or move back?
I mean,
if you can trade up, I'm always interested in trading up. Especially, it depends what you're talking about with that trade up. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like trading from 6 to
3, I wouldn't do.
3 is
2
like,
or 1.
I don't have a high enough degree of confidence. 2 or 1, if one of those becomes available for whatever reason, surprise team jumps up and just like doesn't have the desire or runway that they want to develop a 18-year-old, 19-year-old prospect. Certainly, I'm considering basically anything to get up into the Cooper Flagg range. And I'd have to think harder about it, but I would probably put a lot on the table for a Dylan Harper trade. But what that looks like really depends on who's jumping up, right? Like, of the teams that could be potential, I don't know what they would do with it. Who's the team that jumps out at you in the lottery? It's like, if they got 1 or 2, they don't necessarily even want it. Because back of the lottery right now is like Chicago. They need young talent. They need talent of any kind. And even though they're not a well-run team, I can't see them trading out of 1 or 2. The Hawks just fired their GM, but I don't think they're trading out of 1 or 2 after having the number 1 pick last year. Certainly the Spurs are not. The Blazers, maybe the Rockets would trade out of 1 or 2. But there just aren't teams that I could see turning down this type of opportunity unless you are blowing them away with an offer. And that's when it gets into just like, I'd rather take my chances on holding on to picks and stuff.
Really, the only time teams trade out a number 1 pick in like modern NBA is something like the Celtics scenario where it's like they don't have Markelle Fultz rated number 1. They know every other team or most other teams do. So let me get something to still take the guy that I want. I don't think there's any team among this group that's going to be like, I don't think Cooper Flagg is a number 1 prospect. And usually if you get a chance to draft the number 1 prospect in a draft, you do it and you don't overthink it. So I'd be stunned if this was even a hypothetical that could happen.
Well, what about 2? Just with the Dylan Harper part, where you may have a guard where you feel you don't need that other guard and you can maybe do some other things, get an older, younger player that's already active in the NBA that maybe you can persuade them to send player X with the opportunity of them taking Dylan Harper, but you're more ready for, let's say, Anthony Simons in that range.
I don't know if I can answer this question without spoiling a show that we're going to have later this week.
Okay, fair enough. I like that. I do like that. I do like it because
the only one I can think of,
we're
going to talk about later.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I think if anything, they get 5 or 6. It's either stay there or fall back instead of moving up in this scenario for the 76ers. I don't see them being able to move up at all, especially depending on who you would maybe have to give up to move up to do that. So I think they would stay right there or fall back a little bit. Let's get to, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, there was a second part of that question, and what do you do with the glut of guards?
You play them and you figure out who's the best and who works well together. And
the beauty is, too, the draft is before the Grimes piece of figuring it out.
I think Grimes is the only one. I've mentioned before, I don't think, like, if you went in with 3 or even 4 guards who you want to get major minutes to, like I said, there's 96 minutes between those 2 positions. You can have all of them play nearly 25 minutes per night, and that's not even counting injuries. So I think you can find minutes for most of them, and every now and then maybe you put Grimes at the 3 in super small lineups.
Yeah.
You can get a bunch of them, like 2 or 3 or 4 of them playing 30-plus minutes per night and getting touches. I think they will work fine offensively. So as long as they're working fine offensively, I think they will maintain trade value. It's defensively, might not help you win games, but you can determine that at a later date. The one question I would have is, does that impact how much you're willing to pay Grimes? And that really depends. I think if it is Dylan Harper, then you might have a question about that. Anyone in the 4, 5, 6 range, probably not.
Well, the only big guard, the 2 big guards, Jonas and Trey Johnson. Then if we were to have the other hypothetical of fears along that way, he's already further down anyway, where the other 2 are higher than him in Jonas and Trey Johnson. Does it matter because they're more 6'5", 6'6", versus the fears 6'3", 6'4"?
I mean, they're 6'5", 6'6", but they're pretty bad defensively. So, no, I mean, I think for the most part, I would want to come in, see how well they translate, and then, I would prefer to make that decision from a position of having more knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can do that without seeing them play. I think there is going to be enough time where you can get them all on the court and see which combinations fit, and then make the decision. The only question is if somebody just comes out and blows you away with a offer for Quentin Grimes, like, does that then change your appetite for matching a $20 million per year contract? I think that might be a fair question. But Grimes is also the only one that's really a plus defender out of those 4 hypotheticals.
Mm-hmm.
So losing him is, like, if you're going to lose one, he's probably not the one you would want to lose.
I would just say there will be questions later in the mailbag. I don't think you can be anchored to just about anything right now. I mean, I think it's hard to say with McCain because he didn't play that many games as a result of the injury. But like when you have a season that they just did, the star center, who's your veteran guy and supposed to be the anchor of your team, can't stay healthy anymore. Maxey has not proven he can really grab teams, like undermanned teams, albeit like missing the high salary guys, but he has not proven that he can drag teams to victory or respectability by himself, which So that means that there are certain things you have to consider there. McCain, it's too early to say like, oh, this guy is the floor raiser and the ceiling raiser all at once. Like it's hard to say right now. It's actually not hard to say. They don't have a team setting, floor setting player right now. And so as you get into these if you think Dylan Harper is like a potential multi-time all-star and is a better potential playmaker than Maxey or McCain, you absolutely don't say, well, we already have guards, we're not taking him. The evals here are very important, right? Like saying that Dylan Harper is the number 2 in the class does not mean that you value him necessarily over whatever Maxey's current and future is, whatever McCain's current and future is. So you have to weigh all these things very carefully, because I believe in Dylan Harper as a prospect. I think he's a higher level potential playmaker than what they have, and I value that a lot from a guy with size, a guy who can do things that frankly Maxey and McCain probably can't. But there are some people who say, and rightfully so, Maxey's a known quantity, right? Like we've already gone through the growth trajectory with him. He can be a 25 point per game all-star who has improved in a lot of ways. No reason to be making picks that don't fit around him. Like I understand that logic. So it's a complicated equation that it's why I like being on this side of it and not having to make the actual decision, because we can say, yeah, I think this, and this, but it's not really causing us to either keep or lose our jobs.
Yeah. Just sort of wrap up, I think, where I stand. If you get number 2, you draft best player available. Just bar none, it doesn't change your draft strategy. Where it might change your draft strategy is if you land at 5 or 6. VJ, I think you still take and you see how it plays out. 5 or 6 is where I might more entertain trading down, but I'm also open to trading down, regardless. That's not even really a team construct thing. That's just I don't love the prospects in that range thing. I don't think it impacts McCain, because I think McCain is young enough and probably doesn't have the value coming off that injury. I think teams are going to want to see how he plays coming back from that. So there's no reason to trade him this summer anyway. The only one it could potentially fit or impact is Quentin Grimes, because you have to give him a lot of money to, but Quentin Grimes is also most versatile defender, so you kind of want to keep him in any 3-guard grouping that you have. So I think you just go into the season with 4 guards.
Yes. All right. Well, when we come back, we'll get into more of the questions that we have on this Mailbag Monday, a feature going forward throughout the offseason. It started earlier than we expected, so you get the featured shows during the week earlier than expected. We come back right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
All right, first up, we have to tell you about Ace Hardware. Because Ace Hardware Home Services offers a wide range of residential maintenance, installation, and home repair services, including plumbing, heating, cooling, and electrical. They offer free estimates on equipment installation and replacement with trusted advisors and options that are best suited for your home and budget. At Ace Hardware Home Services, whenever they get ready for the next job, they remember what to bring. They bring experience, including local plumbers and techs that handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installations and upgrades. They bring understanding, they listen to your goals, and the job isn't completed until you're satisfied. And they bring helpful to your home, so you can spend more of your time on the projects that really matter. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project.
And guys, once your house is all fixed up, what do you have to put in it? Some nice new furniture. That's right, from our friends at Ashley, where the low prices are blooming. So spring into savings at Ashley, 50% off of living rooms, bedrooms, and dining rooms. And great part, guys, can have it all delivered for free. Plus, get long-term, no-interest financing. Save on top-brand mattresses and get free delivery, setup, and removal. But don't wait. Spring into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and Philadelphia. Financing with approved credit, minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Hurry to Ashley. Visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information.
Welcome back to the PHLY Sixers podcast on a Monday, a Mailbag Monday, with Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, Devon Givens, Bree producing. All of you in the chat, we appreciate it as always. Get used to Mailbag Mondays for us in the offseason. So as Kyle said at the very top, if you didn't get your question in enough time, it's not being read. Sorry. But now you know that we will do these every Monday as much as possible, depending on what's going on, if something bumps it, and we'll get back to it. But Mailbag Mondays in the offseason. Bree, let's get to question number 3 here on this one. We got Chris with the Daryl Morey. Look at that, the image there, Daryl Morey. If the Sixers retain their pick and use it, who gets sent packing to create the room they need for the rookie scale deal?
This is a Derek question. They don't.
It's not really. That's not really a
need
thing.
to,
Yeah,
right?
any team can sign a first-round draft pick. That's a simple thing. You don't need you don't need cap space. You don't need to use an exception. There is a predetermined rookie scale, and all teams can sign it regardless of whether you're over the cap. The only real concern is whether that, let's say they get the number 1 pick. Great day. We'd all be very happy. That's a $13 million cap hit. The only concern is then if you make a move that creates a hard cap trigger. So basically, if you sign Gershon Yabusele to the non-taxpayer mid-level, then you have to worry about creating space under that new hard cap at the first apron. But that hard cap doesn't actually trigger until you make one of those moves. So the short answer is nothing. The longer answer is they probably just wouldn't use their non-taxpayer. They'd use a smaller taxpayer mid-level. The second apron, they're far enough away that you don't have to really worry about that.
CBA'd.
Where's the stamp? Where's the stamp on that one? A lot of draft questions, by the way, and rightfully so, with so many questions. Sixers not in the postseason getting underway this weekend. And you know what? Let's just put this one in and insert this one right now for everybody. Maybe you're at work, maybe you're out a little busy doing whatever you're doing and you missed it. Cooper Flagg has officially overall
Also, so besides the Supermax, which is people have to realize that's Supermax in
We
5
might not have
years.
sound right now, by the way. Just making sure that it's at least.
That's
being
fine. It's
flagged
me
in the
talking.
chat.
Nobody actually wants to hear that anyway.
They keep coming in, so we might just want to hold off on. Is everything good over there, super producer Bree? Okay.
Yeah.
So
all good.
the Supermax is a big one, right? Because Supermax is going to be like $50 million. There's no NIL money going to make up that. You want to get that clock started as much as possible. Plus, you've got the $13 million he's going to make here. Plus, and I think this gets overlooked with the NIL stuff, he's going to get endorsement money in the NBA too. Like the financial earning potential coming to the NBA is just, you're talking, he would be giving up probably like $70 million to go back to Duke. That would be insane.
I want to stick on something Devon said for 1 second, where he said a lot of people were talking about this. I want to put a moratorium on just because a lot of people said something that we should give it credence, because he clearly was never going back to Duke. It was never going to happen.
It's proof that we don't need people talking about basketball 5 days a week. But please subscribe.
Except for us.
Yes.
No.
And some of our friends.
Yeah. I've had friends say, I can make a case. I'm like,
No, you
can't.
can't.
It's not a great one.
Wrong.
It's not a great case.
Bzzz, extremely loud, incorrect buzzer. No,
Not a
it
great
wasn't
case.
happening in any universe.
None.
Well, maybe in
Zero.
the multiverse, but not in this one.
Zero. So just to let everybody know, since they couldn't hear me, and yes, Cooper Flagg has declared for the NBA draft.
NIL money might start impacting like mid to late first round picks.
Yes.
Not number 1 picks.
No,
Never.
not at all. All right, let's get to the next question, Bree. Here on this one, question number 4 on a Mailbag Monday from Andrew, saying thoughts
Ange
on
Goldstein, what up, Ange?
thoughts on a mock draft and landing CMB on the Sixers. Not one of the consensus names. Andrew, thank you.
I'm so
Shout out
glad that Ange asked this question, because I wrote extensively about Colin Murray Boyles over the weekend for today's article. I am on the bandwagon with him at this point because, all right, so we talked about our concerns with Malawak and kind of the first idea of that Derek brought up. Don't want to draft a center there necessarily. Like that would be now Derek Queen, I think, is still in the mix for me. He's someone we'll talk about at length at some point, I'm sure. But Colin Murray Boyles is, I think, sort of a middle ground hedge. If you're a person who's like, I don't believe that Joel Embiid is going to be available all the time, but I know, as we all do, he's not going anywhere, right? Like he's on the roster. They're going to play him. Somebody who works with and without him in different ways, I think is an important piece to have on the roster. And Colin Murray-Boyles, I think, gains a lot from playing with Joel Embiid. I'm just not sure the other side is true because we've talked about it on the show. The lack of a jump shot is the big thing with him. It's not just he doesn't make them. He hasn't taken them. He's only taken 30-something threes in 2 seasons at South Carolina. Did not connect on a lot of them. He's under 70% from the free throw line, so that's a bad indicator. I can sit here and say, the mechanics are not terrible. Like it looks like a guy who might be able to shoot long term, but the results are what they are. And after 2 years of college play, that's a really important thing.
Good mechanics with volume and low percentage, I can talk myself into.
Yes.
Low percentage is real tough.
Yeah.
Or low volume, I mean.
Now, the other side of it is it will depend a little bit on his measurements because I've talked to some people who think he's going to come in with like a 7'1", 7'2" wingspan measurement. And that would make him almost literally Draymond Green physically. I believe Draymond is 6'7" with a 7'1" wingspan. So if he gets into that territory, I think you see a lot of the same qualities that made Draymond a prospect that was taken in the second round and like well outshot his draft position, right? He is a competitor. His instincts on defense are absolutely incredible. Like makes second and third rotations and beats guys to spots. And while he's not a huge vertical athlete, his positioning is so good that he blows up plays and blocks shots and comes in from the weak side and is a big time playmaker on that end of the floor. And he's got he must have huge hands because there are plays where it's like, it doesn't look like he's out that far and just like snares the ball out of midair and creates a turnover, runs the other way. He's a big time power player on both, like just hard to move on either end of the floor. And I could see a world where he can, if he shoots, and again, it is the biggest question, and I understand why he's probably going to go either in the back end of the top 10 or more than likely back end of the lottery. It's because of the shot. But if he shoots, he can play power forward next to a center who can shoot. That's Joel Embiid. And I think, frankly, as a small ball 5, he could be a world destroyer back there with the right guys around him. So I'm intrigued by the potential of drafting him at 5 or 6, or even like that's a guy, if you find a trade back partner and you know he can still be on the board, he would be at or near or at the top of my list. But again, that jumper is just, it is such a huge swing factor for him as a player because he could go from hyper intelligent, connective piece, all that to you just can't play him in a playoff game. And that's a wide gap between the two outcomes.
No, if the Sixers had the 10th pick in the draft, you would probably be annoyed at how much I would be pushing for him. I would probably focus on him almost singularly as a guy you have to target because he is, I believe in the defense a lot. And if he does come out with a 7'1", 7'2" wingspan and a good standing reach, he becomes a lot more intriguing because then you're not really reliant on him being a great jump shooter because then he can credibly play that 5 spot. And really I've wanted a great positional, legitimate small ball 5 for a long time. That's sort of, I think, why I gravitated towards Yabu earlier in the season because you hoped maybe he was positionally sound enough he could overcome his physical limitations. But if this guy, Colin Murray-Boyles, has the height that he's not really his head might be undersized, but his standing reach and his ability to protect the rim isn't undersized. I think having someone who can make those rotations, who can call out those assignments, just gives you a real great weapon. But I have to see those measurements. And if not, if he's only let's say a 6'11" wingspan, then all of a sudden he needs that jump shot a little bit more.
Yes.
And relying on that jump shot, if you draft him at 10 and the jump shot pops and he develops it, then all of a sudden he can drastically outshoot his draft slot. But if he doesn't have an outlier level wingspan and reach, he almost has to have that jump shot. And that I'm a little less willing to take at 6.
How much do you factor in where he's listed at 6'7", some places 6'8", but he measures in at 6'5", 6'6" maybe?
Oh, if he's 6'5", there's just, you can't.
Are you talking 6'5" in shoes or 6'5" without?
When they measure him now and have him at 6'7", it was with shoes. So
I mean,
let's say
if
6'6" with shoes. 6'6".
Give me the wingspan and the reach, but every
Yeah, I'm trying to make a comment that's not going to get memed to death, but like every inch matters.
that's
here.
exactly
Like,
what I almost said.
because
But like,
the margin for error will not be that big, right? Like Draymond, the reason he worked, other than playing with Steph Curry and Clay, I don't know that Draymond becomes Draymond in another situation, is because he had just enough height and wingspan to make it work with the incredible
yes, you need both.
processing speed, instincts, awareness, basketball IQ that he had. And like, I think you can see he's a very high IQ player, right? And I think you see that on offense too. I think for his size, he's a great passer and he can make all different types of passes. Like I put some clips in the article I wrote for allphly.com, but great passer to the post, can pass from the elbows, can pass on the move, good connective guy. There was a play early in their season where they played some nonsense team. So not like his stats or anything really matter from it. But he hit a post seal on his man, and the entry gets thrown in over the top, and he sees the help coming off of the shooter on the left wing, and without ever catching it, he looks up at the ball, smacks it with his hand into the shooter's shooting pocket. Not like, oh, I hit it in the general direction of somebody. I put it in my shooter's hands from like 15 feet away in midair with one hand. Like that's the speed at which he sees and reacts to the game. And so I think this is a guy that if he gets taken like 14th or something like that in a year or two, as long as he's not a apocalyptically bad shooter, everyone's going to be like, how did this guy not get taken in the top 5 or 6 picks? And so me saying I'd be interested in him at 5 or 6 is just getting ahead of that. It's saying I'd be willing to take the gamble because I believe in his IQ and his defensive output and all that so much. And it's just one thing that is holding him back. And when it's just one thing, it's probably the most important thing for a guy coming into this situation, right? It is a risky move, but I am big time in on him as a defensive guy at the very least.
All right. Quick one from Super Chat from Mellow 3 Point. Thoughts on Rasheer Fleming from St. Joe's at 5 or 6? That's very
35 or 6.
That's where I was gonna go.
Yeah, like
you can maybe, if you want to decide, it's not that early. Mellow 3 Point.
No, there's nobody who thinks he's going top 10.
No,
it's just not.
Nah, you might see him somewhere falling in the back end of the first round and maybe sneak into day 2 of the NBA draft because he slipped into the second round and Sixers have the 35th overall pick, but not at 5-6, Mellow 3 Point. But we definitely appreciate it.
Well, look, since this is the Every Inch Matters podcast, just to point out, 6'9", 7'5" wingspan, 9'1" standing reach. Incredible measurement.
Pretty good.
Rasheer Fleming? Yeah.
I want to say one more thing. I know I've brought this up.
Now that was the team measurements. So
we'll
take it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But
one more thing on Colin Murray Boyles, because I forgot to leave this out of my spiel. I think the situation that he was in, they went 2-16 in the SEC. They went 12-20. And you see so many of these guys that are considered top prospects where even if they're on a bad team, you get like 2/3 of the year where they're like, yeah, I'm going through what I need to go through. Like I'm playing hard, all that. And once you hit a certain point, it's just all the instincts fall out the window. And it's like, I don't need to dial it up. I'm getting drafted, all that. Like you watch South Carolina late in the year, they're losing these games and they're losing games pretty comfortably at times. And he is still like 100 miles an hour, flying around the floor, running through his shoes, trying to make a difference for his team. So like, if you're just talking about basketball character stuff, that kind of stuff matters, right? When you look at, how Ace Bailey ended the season, he fouls out of the game and like played poorly, was not all that dialed in. That's stuff that like it might not be the total picture. It might not be the most important thing as you're evaluating a prospect, but it is a separator. If you grade somebody similarly and you point at one guy and say, that guy loves to play and loves to compete, I will take that guy every single time. That is a decisive factor for me in that way.
Unfortunately, effort doesn't put the ball in the basket, so I need him to shoot too.
He also, the other thing with CMB that you have to be worried about if you're looking at the tools and the skills, he is extremely left-hand dominant on offense. He's one of those that he'll go right, and then he's still trying to. It's like the Kelly Oubre. It's really Julius Randle because he plays a lot like him.
Yeah.
If Julius Randle ever liked passing the ball, but that's something to keep an eye on because he had good finishing numbers, but they are brought down by the one-handedness.
The good thing about him being a worker, as Kyle said, of just playing and doesn't matter what the record is. This is a guy who wasn't like a top 5-star recruit. He was looked at as a first-round pick, at least on the back end in his freshman year. Went back to school and raised his profile overall to become what Kyle and Derek are talking about, potentially being someone in the conversation for top 6, but certainly in the lottery in June's draft. So seems like a really good kid who works hard. He models his game after Draymond Green because of the defensive stuff. He's mentioned Jaden McDaniels, also the Julius Randle part on the offensive end, just because of the lefty stuff that goes along with it.
To your point, coming out of high school, the RSCI, which is like a combination of all of the different ranking services, ranked 101 in 2023. So not even on the radar.
Yep. So there you go. All right, we come back. We'll get into more. We'll tell you about our draft lottery that's coming up on May 12th here at the office, and we would like to have you hang out with us. We'll stay with us right here. Quick break. We come right back right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
All right. We want to make sure we tell you about Empire today because just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage. And how Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. Those big box stores might have a flooring department, but the person helping you with flooring may have been doing sinks yesterday and could be stocking light bulbs tomorrow. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space so you can see how it looks with your furniture and in your house. You get precise measurements taken and have all your questions answered so there are no surprises. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. Schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right, a $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/PHLY for full details.
And I want to tell you about a good hang, good time to hang out with the friends and the family. You just want to get out of the house. The weather's beautiful. But you said, you know what? I want to go try to make some money and just hang out at the casino. Parks Casino is the place for you. Parks Casino that I've been telling you about is a fantastic spot where you can go and hang out there. But if you can't get there and it is beautiful out and you want to make sure that you take advantage of maybe playing some games here, you're at work, it's a little boring, and you're like, you know what, let me do something different. The BetParks app that you can also go to, and that will give you the games that you love to play in person at Parks Casino, sure, but like pop culture, slides, roulette wheels, dice games, and more can also be played on the BetParks app. BetParks Online Casino has the games you love, whether you're at home or on the go. Here's what you do. Download the BetParks app, create an account today to receive an offer you can't pass up. New users are eligible to receive up to $1,000 back if you are down in the first 24 hours after signing up. That's $1,000 if you are down in the first 24 after signing up. BetParks Online Casino is available to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and Michigan residents as well. Terms and conditions apply. Parks Casino. This is how you win. You must be 21 and over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's get back to the PHLY Sixers podcast. Thanks for that thumbs up, Kyle, on the Parks Casino app. Tell you about the draft lottery party that we're going to have right here at the office where you can hang out with the four of us and Rich Hoffman, Vince Pellegrini, our GM, all of us here for the NBA draft lottery on May 12th right here at our offices. You must be a diehard member, and there's no better time to sign up than right now with the $36 intro offer that we told you about at the top of the show. So allphly.com, go to the website. When you sign up, go to the events page, sign up for our event to hang out with us for the NBA Draft Lottery on May 12th. And after you do that, then you go read Kyle's story at allphly.com about the 5th and 6th pick and more on Colin Murray-Boyles and the type of player that he could be if the Sixers were.
And a lot of other guys. I just emptied the notebook this week on the 5 and 6 guys.
And the NFL draft is this week, so you know there's a lot of content there. So once again, allphly.com to sign up, and then go to the events page, sign up to hang out with us for the NBA Draft Lottery. And we're also, I was told to let everybody know, you made fun of our tank helmets. Well, if you come hang out with us as a member, you might be one to take a tank helmet home. There are 4 of them. Ooh. You get to take one of our helmets home. You said it on Friday that we, pretty good hygiene overall. Yeah. But we'll still clean out the inside of the helmet and sign it and give to you as a gift for hanging out, a prize that night for hanging out with us at the NBA Draft Lottery. So tank helmets also up for grabs. Whose do you want? Got to get the signatures too. So there you go. Make sure you come hang out with us at the NBA Draft Lottery on May 12th here at our offices. Food, drinks, all the kind of cool stuff that's going on that night.
I'm hoping the food and the drink and just hanging out with a bunch of Sixers fans. Probably a bigger draw than like our autograph, which has a expected value of about $0. But right, we're happy to add it if it helps.
Right. Absolutely. All right, let's get to another question there, Bree. Run with it. From Rick. Oh, Rick in the chat and Rick in the Discord. You notice how I know that's a Discord question?
Look at that.
Pay attention.
You know what a logo looks
exactly.
like. To be fair, I wasn't convinced he knew what the Discord logo looks like.
With the emergence of Grimes, does that make Jared McCain available in the trade market? Maybe a trade scenario where the move up in the draft.
There is an ongoing bet in the Discord of when your next appearance in the Discord will be.
All right. Okay.
So I don't know that Grimes is that much of a factor in how you view McCain moving forward. Like, I want to be clear. They need to bring Quentin Grimes back unless he gets offered a silly contract. And I think we actually have a question to that effect somewhere deep in this mailbag. But like I said with Adem, someone playing really well for the month of March and like the end of the season where teams are, that is not a, hey, I need to make other moves with people I think are building blocks, right? If I'm trading Jared McCain, it's because I look at who Jared McCain is, right? Like a very productive and skilled young player, but a player who has a real uphill battle to being a good defensive player on a good team, someone who doesn't necessarily fit cleanly next to Tyrese Maxey, although they need to be given more time for us to figure that out. And someone who, while I was encouraged by his playmaking in year one, I don't think you look at him as like, that's the guy who runs the team and just does kind of everything as a playmaker, which you tend to want one of those if you're going to go real deep into the playoffs, some team concepts notwithstanding. So if I were to move McCain, it is not really about Quentin Grimes so much as it is, I think there's an opportunity to make some kind of big move. Like I think the one that has come up on social media and just general discussion is like, if somebody offered you the chance to move from, let's say 4 to 1, yes, you move the pick and McCain for 1, I'm doing it. Because I believe in Cooper Flagg that much, not just as a prospect, but also as team fit. And I don't mean Sixers fit. I mean, you build teams so easily outward from having a player like that. I would do that. But there are not a lot of trades where I'm not itching to move Jared, certainly at all. It's just about what kind of opportunities are you putting in front of me.
Said this last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, time runs together, but if you believe Joel Embiid is done, and I'm willing to bring him back and give him another shot, see if he can get back, but if he's done being an impact player, the only real goal of this franchise over the next year or two is position yourself to get a top 15 player in a sport or a player who could develop into being a top 15 player in a sport. I don't think they have that outside of Embiid. So if an opportunity comes up where you think you can improve your chances or better position yourself to get that kind of player, then yes, I would consider it. It has nothing to do with Quentin Grimes or his play. That has everything to do with how I view team building in this league. So to Kyle's point, 4-1. You do that because you believe in Cooper Flagg, not because you have a glut of guards.
Absolutely. Cooper Flagg it is. Trade him. Go on.
Now, would you do that for Dylan Harper? That's a lot tougher for me to justify, I think.
I would have to watch a little more film, which we will be doing a lot of here in the next month. I would consider it, though. I would consider it.
Yeah. I want to, there's an idea I want to bring up here that I saw people discussing after Rockets Warriors last night that I think is pertinent here. We talk a lot on the show. I think all of us are people who appreciate good or great defense. And like, I try to highlight that a lot in my writing and on the show and whatnot. And I think certainly Nico Harrison in the trade that he made with Luka, the defense wins championships things. Like, yeah, you need to have a certain level of defense to be in the inner circle of contenders. I do think it has swung a little too far in like public perception when the league now is a lot of, if that guy can't make threes or if that guy doesn't have offensive utility, he's unplayable in the playoffs, right? Like you see that all the time over the last 5 years. That Matisse Thybulle was one with the Sixers, right? Where he was a very, very good defender, albeit sometimes got caught in some dumb foul situations and big moments, but like all defense level guy. Teams just ignored him in the playoffs. He couldn't make threes, and that's the end of it, right? He just cramped spacing too much. And so, like, having McCain and Maxey and Grimes, like, it is not a problem that they might have a lot of offensive firepower that's not a defensive fit, right? Like, you can work around, hey, we're going to score a ton of points, and we just need to put enough defensive stability around them. Like, that's one of the main reasons that unless it is a Cooper Flagg level trade, I'm not itching to trade anybody that could be part of the next group because you need, as Daryl Morey talked about in exit interviews, you need depth, youth, athleticism, and you shouldn't be giving it away unless special opportunities are coming your way.
I have zero concern over having too many people who can shoot, dribble, and pass.
Yep.
Zero concern. I have some concerns if you don't have enough defensive versatility with that group. But no, I think in the past there was you don't need to duplicate these skill sets. Your point guard is your dribbler and your passer. Your shooting guard is your shoot. No, everybody needs to shoot. Everybody needs a pass. Everybody needs a dribble. And however many you have that can't do that, just makes it all the more easier to play off of your starters.
And like go a little further back. You remember Robert Covington, high-level defensive player for the Sixers, right? Like, God, it was a great story of the process.
Dribbling
that
with mittens
Celtics
on his
series
hand.
in 2018, he literally could not stay on the floor because he couldn't make shots and he can't dribble. So Boston was like, okay, whatever. If he beats us, he beats us, and he couldn't. And that's why they had to take him out of the lineup.
TJ McConnell was the one who took his place in the lineup when he couldn't make a shot or put the ball on the floor. Robert Covington. There you go. All right, let's get to the next one as we have a few more to get to. Get one more in here. Purple Heart asking the question, would you salary dump Drummond, Gordon, or Oubre, or even two of them together and give a future year's pick attached just to move away from them to give Grimes what he wants in the event he asks for more than anticipated?
So everyone's looking at me. All right. You don't really...
You don't need to, I think, right?
You don't really need to. Sort of goes back to the question about like how are you going to clear money to pay for the pick. It only becomes a concern if you make a move that hard caps yourself at that first apron. The most likely move that would do that is giving Yabusele more than the taxpayer mid-level, giving him a portion of that non-taxpayer mid-level. If then yes, moving on from Andre Drummond becomes, and Eric Gordon as well, and possibly even Kelly, becomes a huge consideration. I don't think they should hard cap themselves for Gershon Yabusele, in part because I don't think it's going to require you to do so, but also in part because with his defensive limitations, I don't think he's worth doing so. But if you were going to go that path, and let's shift it a little way from Gershon, maybe you find someone in free agency that you really like that would require that non-taxpayer mid-level, that's when you have to really make an effort to move some of these salaries. I think you should probably just try to get off of Andre Drummond's contract just to get him off the roster, if I'm being completely honest. I think there's a better use of that roster spot. And because if you then do want to get below that first apron to make one of those moves later on in the year, you've already done that. You've sort of like planned ahead. Eric Gordon, he's basically making the minimum. You don't have to worry too much about that.
Yep.
And Kelly Oubre, I said before, I don't mind his contract. I'm a little worried about a longer term 3 or 4 year deal, but I think his salary would be relatively easy to move.
All right, let's get one more in here. Thanks, Purple Heart. We appreciate it. Let's get one more in here for the Mailbag Monday. See what we have here. Alexander Hamilton, look at him. Busy. Likes basketball.
Still alive, evidently.
When will we know if Joel Embiid has returned to form physically and mentally? Will he retire if he's the shell of himself we saw this past season?
I mean, you're going to hate this answer. I don't know that we'll ever know.
Yep, I agree.
I think the nature of his career and his injuries tell you you're never going to have complete. And look, this is true for everybody, right? Like, if you look at a guy like LeBron, right? He's at the high end of super durable, has had this long career where up until the last few years where he's in his late 30s, now 40s, and you say, it happens as you get older. He had incredible runs of no injuries, at least no major injuries, playing every game and close to every game. But everyone is a risk to get hurt. Everyone. You just don't know. Like a guy, Jared McCain, thought had a concussion and tore his meniscus, right? Like there are playing professional sports and pushing your body and playing a sport, by the way, that's played on hardwood. Again, we can pause there.
Couple more inches.
But playing a sport on hardwood where there's a lot of stress on all your extremities, your feet, your knees, like there's a reason that someone like Dirk Nowitzki is walking around like he's 70 years old when he didn't retire that long ago. You just never know. And so then you add on Joel's own individual health history, his inability to stay healthy, and the freak nature of some of these injuries. You are never going to watch Joel Embiid. You guys all know this. You will never watch Joel Embiid until the end of his career and feel complete comfort and security. This is the ride that we're on, right? He's been here, 10 years or so now? I wish I could tell you, if he gets to the All-Star break and he's cooking, boy, everything's just in the past and we're going well. We know that's not how it works. And so, I don't say that to be a fear monger or to say it's over, we're doomed, blah, 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 like any of that kind of stuff. I just want you to go in with reasonable expectations and to prepare yourself, to protect yourself against the likely reality of you're going to see Joel hit the floor in the first game he returns to the lineup. He's going to wince. He's going to sit there longer than you want. And you're going to be like, oh my God, here we go again. That's the world that you live in until this guy no longer plays for the Sixers. It's why I get that some people are just get this guy out the door and start fresh. But I don't know, man. Just make peace with it. That's all you can do.
100%. That is exactly what I was going to say. You never. The answer is never.
It's not going to happen.
Just won't know. You just won't know. All right, we are going into overtime here on this Monday for a Mailbag Monday. So we hope that you can hang out with us, everybody. Thank you for checking in on the television side on the Fast Channel. And now just go over to allphly.com and hang out with us there so we can keep the conversation going overall. Riaz has a super chat. Is there a world where the Sixers trade picks 4 through 6 if it meant acquiring future assets? Would it help us sign our own free agents or not having a pick? Again, that is Riaz with a super chat here on this Monday.
So Derek basically already went over the
I think Riaz
I
would
will
help
say,
us sign.
Yeah, the financial side we sort of covered. I will say I wouldn't want to completely trade out of this year's draft.
I agree.
If you can give me like a 10th pick or something in that range and then an additional future pick, I have interest in that. I don't want to trade out completely.
Yep.
That'd be a really tough sell. It would have to be
a
complete heist of a
I
trade.
watched so much bad basketball. You've got to give me something to get excited about.
You would have to tell me you're getting like 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
And there is no way at 5 or 6 unless there is some kind of, like Cooper Flagg has some kind of calamitous injury between now and then and teams get scared out. But even then, I think he's still going number one. Like I just don't see a world where a team can make a good enough offer to get you to trade out. Trade back, yeah. Like if you get to, I'd have to think about where my cutoff point is for a trade back, and that might be a whole show based on our prospect lists and big boards and whatnot. But I think maybe 10, 11. I don't know at the very back of the lottery if I'm willing to do that. That's a pretty big drop, but it does depend on the prospects who are available.
And it also depends on a future pick.
Yep.
All right. That'll do it for the mailbag portion of the show. We had a lot, and we appreciate everybody who sent them in, whether Discord or on Twitter. We definitely appreciate everybody for sending those in and being involved in our Mailbag Monday. Once again, for people who are checking in later, doing a Mailbag Monday throughout the off season, as we always incorporate you into the show, but we want to add you more into the show, get your questions in. Things change every week, different questions every week, so we want to make sure that we ask you what you think, what's on your mind, and maybe we can give you some great answers. Derek and Kyle certainly did that today on this Monday as we start to kick this off for the off season. A couple of news and notes. Our friend from DLLS Mavs, while they have so much going on with the Dallas Mavericks, Mark Stein took some time out to report overall that with the firing that Kyle mentioned earlier, Landry Fields, the general manager, is he general manager? Yeah, general manager of the Atlanta Hawks, fired. They have placed someone else in the general manager role right now, but they're looking for a president of basketball operations. And according to Mark Stein, Elton Brand's name, Derek, has come up again as the offseason gets underway as a candidate to be looked at for that role in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He played in Atlanta at the tail end of his career, came back to Philadelphia, has not left since then.
Was reportedly in the running for it earlier in his career.
Yep.
I hope he gets a shot because I think he was put in a really shitty spot here in Philly when he was.
Can always tell we're in overtime.
Yeah. I couldn't wait. Those 2 minutes, man. Every 2 minutes matters. No, I think he was put in a really shitty spot because it's like everyone, when they want to explain that era, the collaborative era, there's one of two realities. Either Josh Harrison ownership elevated a guy with a year and a half of front office experience to be the lead decision maker and final say in the most critical portion of the franchise's recent history, or he didn't have final say and there were 5 cooks in the kitchen. Either way, it's a terrible spot for him to be in. He did not have the experience. He did not have the time in the front office to be the final decision maker. And if he wasn't the final decision maker, which Kyle and I have both said wasn't really the case, then he was put in the figurehead spot of a disaster, of an organizational disaster, and become a very public face of the failure of that group. Either way, it kind of sucks for him. I would love now that he's had 5 or so years under Daryl Morey to sort of learn, gotten more experience in the front office. I hope he gets a chance to go out there, have another lead job, and rewrite the narrative on him.
Yeah.
Because like I said, even if he was the one making those mistakes, and Kyle and I both reported that's not really how it happened, he wasn't ready for it. I just think either way you look at that situation, it was bad for him, and I don't think it was fair to him.
To build off of your point, Derek, of what he was and wasn't responsible for, the team has more information than anybody else on what he was involved with and what he is responsible for from that time period.
He's the only one here.
If their belief was that he was the root cause or even a main cause of why things went wrong, I don't think he would have remained with this organization, certainly not for as long as he has. And I think when you talk to people, not just with the Sixers, but around the league, Elton is still a very respected guy. Like, people respect his intelligence, his relationships with people. Like, I can tell you at least that part of the inner workings of the Sixers, when they are heading into a trade deadline, part of Elton's job is, so if Daryl Morey has good relationships with like these 10 teams and the 10 lead executives, maybe Elton Brand has very good relationships with another 10 different teams. And so as they're trying to gauge, hey, are the Hawks doing this? Hey, what are the Pistons doing? What do the Lakers think that they need? What is Portland going to buy at the deadline? How available is this? Elton Brand has his group of teams that he is basically the point of contact and responsible for getting the temperature check, maybe getting hey, this is like a tentative offer sort of thing. Like chew on this for a little bit, and having that open line of dialogue with, from my understanding, probably about half the teams that they're talking to in advance of the deadline. And so Elton's presence here has been to take responsibility off of someone like Daryl Morey's plate, and then also contribute in all the different ways that you do, right? As a talent evaluator, scouting guys, like adding your opinion into every major decision that they're making. So like, I would like to see him get another opportunity. Like the time that I have had to spend with Elton, talk to Elton, and as Derek alludes to, unpack what happened when he was a lead decision maker, you come away, big time air quotes around that. You come away having a lot of respect and sympathy for him, that he ends up being like, oh, well, Elton Brand did this. And it's really more like Elton Brand was nominally in charge at that time, but I don't know that he was the guy who was like, I signed on the dotted line and what I say goes. So
Yeah, I know he wasn't.
yeah. So I would like to see him get an opportunity elsewhere. I don't know that he'll be good, right? Like maybe he gets the job in Atlanta, and you see some of the similar pitfalls that they fell into when he ran the team for that brief time. That's fine. Maybe that happens. But I think that he has the acumen to be better than what he's been able to show. And frankly, like if you were to give him credit for anything, if we were to say it actually was his fault in 2018-19, like the decisions that were made that screwed them, a trade like the Jimmy Butler trade that they made at the time, I think was an example of a very good aggressive move, because they didn't give up much of anything in terms of future risk and future upside. That was strictly, I want a big talent here, but I'm leaving options for everything else. So if you want to pin all the bad stuff on him, that's fine. But I still think there is some good in there that you'd say, as Derek said, with more experience and opportunity, that he could learn from that and then become a better lead executive in the future.
Don't have much to add to that. Elton Brand giving him a shot. That would be pretty cool to see from afar. Just on the back end of what Kyle said about the Jimmy Butler piece, it was so bad in Minnesota at that point. You give him credit also for swooping in there and being able to do that and not having to give up much, giving up players on the roster that you may have liked, but to take advantage of that opportunity to get Jimmy Butler in here. That was a pretty good move at the time, where a lot of people didn't really see that one coming. Another GM that has been taking a lot of heat. He has some things to say, even as the season came to an end, as the Dallas Mavericks year has finally come to a close after being knocked out in the play-in game. Bree, let's let just people hear this one in the event that they didn't hear Nico Harrison talking about Luka's relationship with Dallas.
I did know that Luka was important to the fan base. I didn't quite know it to what level. But really, the way we looked at it is, you know, if you're putting a team on the floor that's Kyrie, Clay, PJ, Anthony Davis, and Lively, we feel that's a championship caliber team, and we would have been winning at a high level, and that would have quieted some of the outrage.
All right. Well, number one, yes, Kyrie Irving tore his ACL out for the season. Anthony Davis played one game before Kyrie Irving tore his ACL out for the season. But that doesn't answer that to what he just said about not knowing what that man meant to that city and that fan base.
You witnessed it firsthand for 4 years. How did you not know?
I'm picturing him walking into the office like, you guys ever heard of this Luka guy? Like, how is this even possible?
The guy that got us to the championship last year just didn't see that. Oh.
Guy that we famously traded for in the draft and brought in as a teenager and went on to exceed all expectations you could possibly have for a young player and prospect. Like what? Every day that goes by where I hear a new Nico Harrison quote, I'm like, how is this guy employed? Like there is no way. If this guy was just he was the Sixers GM and made the exact same trade with the exact same roster, exact same decisions, and went on this failure of a press tour over the last few months, that he would still have a job. There's just no way. The pressure here would just I can't, he wouldn't be able to go out in public. He can't even go out in public in Dallas.
If there was a tutorial of how not to ruin your reputation and have it go up in the flames, it's him. He made the deal that got them PJ Washington and also Daniel Gafford to help make that run, signing Kyrie Irving to that extension and keeping him right there with Luka in the backcourt because they signed him thinking that both of them could play together and make it work, and they got to the NBA Finals, and then he just throws his reputation into the fire, and it's still flaming because he keeps talking. And now if you read, of course, our buddy Tim Cato from DLLS, also Mark Stein, and some of the things that they have reported.
Did you read the Tim McMahon story today?
And the Tim
at
McMahon
ESPN?
story? There's a lot of stuff. These guys are getting information after, and everybody's willing to talk because they're like, look, this is a mess.
Well, and then, so he didn't have a press conference after the trade, right?
No, he did. It was on the road. They were in like Charlotte.
Yeah, but it wasn't like a full press conference. It was like just around
just
reporters.
answer the question they had. Yeah.
And then the next time you have like a full press availability, it's no
Closed off.
recorders.
Right.
And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, that came down from ownership. Well, you got to step in then. You can't have that. Like the optics of that are a disaster. And quite frankly, your fans just deserve an explanation on the record with your full quotes. It's just the way that this has been handled, it reeks a little bit of just insecurity, if I'm being
And you
completely
can't
honest.
get him back. There's not like you can get him back. You can't.
To the point of insecurity, a big hook of that Tim McMahon story at ESPN today was about, he asked at that closed door meeting with Nico about Casey Smith, who's their former director of health and performance for the Mavericks, big time tied to Dirk Nowitzki. Like Dirk credits him a lot for keeping me healthy so I could have the long career I had, blah, blah, blah.
20 years.
And talked of the very beginning of the story is Nowitzki gets inducted into the Hall of Fame. Casey Smith is one of the people there. He's there with his, I believe, his wife. Nico Harrison's there with his wife, and big traveling party to celebrate Dirk. Right after the Hall of Fame ceremony, Smith reportedly goes back to visit his dying parent, and Nico's like, "Hey, I need to meet with you." And he's like, "Hey, I can't right now. I'm tending to an ailing family member." And Nico allegedly is like, "I'll just get you on a Zoom call." And they had a video call and said, "Your services are no longer needed." And it's like, dude, if you're set aside the Luka stuff, if you're supposed to be Mr. Relationships, right? That was the part of the basis for him getting that job and having that job now is this guy is connected in the league. He's been involved on the sneaker side and all that.
Man.
I'm sick of sneaker execs, man.
He had a great reputation at Nike, man.
He did. He had a very good reputation.
Like one of the top 3 guys there.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so to have this big of a failure where someone who's beloved in the organization is just booted unceremoniously, it's like. And
I didn't know how important he was to the.
It says a lot about him as a person, I think. The conceit of McMahon's story was he believes that Nico wanted yes men around him. And that is in any line of work. Yeah. That is never a trait that you want someone to have.
No, it's not.
Luckily, you guys have me, so you know that you won't have any yes men around here. I yell at you all the time.
Oh, man. So, look, we have a lot of other things like talking about game 1s, a couple of games 2s tonight. We'll get to them a little bit tomorrow after a few more of these are played, and we can discuss those a little bit more at length on Tuesday's show. But we had to give you those 2 at least of Elton Brand, certainly, and the Nico Harrison. Just that one video right there, and you can go in all these different ways of Kyle and Derek where they just went on these 3 stories from Stein, Cato, and McMahon of all that's going on. Find the one also about where the owner is thinking about maybe I was wrong about Nico Harrison and changing his mind. Maybe I was wrong. So
too late, buddy.
A little bit. You're not getting that guy back. Not getting him back. All right, that'll do it for us. Let's get to the world famous roll call on a Monday.
Baby. I feel like I'm about to sneeze. So if I sneeze in the middle of anybody's name, it's nothing personal. It's just seasonal allergies.
I'll move on in.
Thank you, as always, to all our people who are hanging out with us, including but not limited to my guy Martian Lynch.
What up, Martian?
X-Man, my girl Winona, Kyle Wright. Darkness!
Turn the lights down for Nico Harris.
Seriously. Money Mar, Hookah Doncic.
Hookah.
Hookah's got some
He's
thoughts
available.
about that trade,
He's
presumably.
available.
Riaz,
get
who I
him.
believe came through with a super chat today.
Sure did.
Eugene Ross, the king of Comcast himself, hanging out. Gotta say, send some love to Eugene, whose attendance is improving as we get deeper into the offseason.
Love it, Gene.
None your business. Well, you made it my business by showing up in the chat. So there's
100%.
that. Hedfa, hello. Hedfa.
Hey, Heffa.
MBD, DBF,
MBD?
Neil Deaver,
Neil.
SB Cole, Charles,
Chuck.
Mary Overfield.
Hey, Mary.
Who else we got in here today? Bootzilla, obviously. Bootzilla always hanging out with us. Some of you, I got to say, every day I just come away thinking, yeah, some of you really like to talk. Says the guy who hosts an hour podcast 5 days a week. Mello 3 Point. What
Mello,
up to
my
Mello?
man. Also a super chat, Mello.
There you go. Liam Stevens. I haven't seen. Oh, Philly Sheriff. I don't know.
Back.
I don't want to get arrested. I got to
Philly
be careful.
Sheriff. No,
be
we got-
careful around the sheriff.
That's our backing.
Val. What up, Val?
Hey,
I think
Val.
Val's going to be at our draft lottery event and potentially. the
Sounds like
golf
she doesn't
outing.
want the tank helmet, though. She hated it.
Yeah, well, that's okay. You don't need to. If you win the tank helmet, Val, someone else will win it. I would guess that. So, or even someone in your
Yeah.
life doesn't even have to be a fellow diehard. Just bring it home for somebody. Remo K, hanging out with us. You better love somebody.
They love somebody, love somebody, love somebody.
And we did have somebody that was upset with my red shorts today, but I don't know their name, and I think Bree blocked them in the chat. So
They're in
we'll
timeout.
never know.
They're in
So-
timeout.
Timeout. All right. Well, you know.
Teach them a lesson. Maybe they'll
There you
come
go.
back.
That was all Bree.
She's the
if
boss.
you want to come and yell at me about my shorts,
She is
unless
the
you
boss.
own the company and set the dress code, kiss my ass. How about that? And also shout out to Fresh Prince 215. Please, on your way out, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And if you hit the thumbs up button, it helps us out in
We got
the
the second
algorithm.
pick.
Second pick in the Daily Tankathon
Oh, good job, Derek. Thumbs up is today. We'll say
Good
good,
way to start
job,
the week
Derek,
off.
on the Tankathon spin.
Way.
But as always, it's a good job, super producer Bree, holding things together on the back end. We will be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. for another show, as we are every day, Monday through Friday in the off season. We'll see you then. Take care of yourselves, everybody.
See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.